We inherit the fire audio, Rodley, Enduhue. She is wearing her keigakana, royal blue with white dots, a symbol of things nearly lost, things we want to carry with us into the future. There is nothing out of the ordinary about a woman wearing a keigakana on any day. But because in this photograph, it is my mother who wears it, I believe something extraordinary happens for people when they look. Instead of the keigakana, maybe they see military dress. Instead of the blue doke, they might see a soldier's beret. Perhaps they see a weapon in her hand. I don't know exactly what people think when they see this photograph, but I do know that around the country they keep copies of it in their houses, in safe places where police can't find it. Along with many other banned images, I have long understood that I will never comprehend the full extent of what my mother means to people outside our family. Neither the depths of that meaning, nor the tenacity with which they hold on to her. The Foreign Reporter writes about the insolence and violence of locals in South Africa rioting against police. In reality, it was the army and not the police, which in my mind is an enormously significant misprint. If that's what that was. Here is the thing. People may not know that it's me on her back, but this is my earliest memory. My mother's rapid heartbeat, her voice vibrating against my ears, her skin heating up, a blaze passing from her body to mine, her sweat against my chest. All this, my mother's fear turned rage, is my first memory of the world. Nothing else came before. I am bound to her. My sweaty, rapid heartbeat. Whenever I look at that photograph, I can only experience this involuntary return to that moment and feel. My body gives in to panic and pain. Having no words for these feelings means I can't share them with anyone. Instead, I've learned to sit with the many sensations and let the memory do what it needs to do. Because I understand that I can't, in fact, escape. I am trapped inside the white summer blanket and held in by the forearm tightening against my bottom. Strapped to a body larger and braver than my own. I think even in those few minutes, I must have known that the world might be frightening, but it was safer with my mother in it. Safer still, if you could be strapped to her. Yet in my safety, I could feel my mother's terror. We inherit the fire audio Rodley Enduhue. I've hardly ever noticed the finger and the open mouth and the frightened soldier. I look closely at the baby, and every time I am stunned that she remains asleep. Because in my body's memory, what she felt, her mother's body betraying its own fright, couldn't possibly keep a child in slumber. I was 6 years old, and on the cusp of venturing into the world of teachers, new friends, and learning cursive, when I found out that my mother was famous. I mean, when I actually became aware of the fact, like an image coming into view when the fog clears, I found out about my mother's fame, and it was in that same week that I learned we all had to be aware of the dangers that came with it and protect her. Perhaps it had come in small doses before, but when I discovered the photograph, the fact of my mother's standing in the world fell with a sudden thud and shattered the ground. But I knew it had something to do with how much I wanted to be apart from her. I discovered the mother and child photo in a pile of newspaper clippings in my father's study while I was looking through things I wasn't supposed to be looking through. Because none of my friends were available that lazy afternoon, and I was bored. I think I was on the hunt for the thrill of finding things meant to be hidden from children and risking being found out. I told my grandmother about my discovery 3 days later in her bedroom while she sewed me a skirt. She was alone and without her sisters, the mothers, which was rare. I held a bunch of red wool that had unspooled across the room, and as I tidied up, I kept my eyes on her floor. I saw a picture of Mama shouting at a soldier. I said, carefully trying for a casual tone, And because mother never admonishes us, I trusted she'd forgive my snooping. But she stopped licking the thread. She was about to slip through the head of a needle. Took off her glasses and held my gaze. Don't tell her you saw it, she said. She doesn't need us asking her about these things. Her eyes stayed on me, as she waited for me to indicate that I understood. Kalilo, she said. And I knew it was serious, because my grandmother, we inherit the fire audio, Rodley, Enduhyu, never calls me by my name. When I nodded, she went back to her needle and thread. We have to keep her safe, she added, shaking her head. I had never thought of my mother as someone who had to be protected. But in that moment, I felt the rigid back and the arm under my bottom, the damp dress against my cheek, the vibration of the voice in my ear. It all came back with a know my mother's fear, because my mother's fear is the very first thing I ever remember feeling in the world. I could tell by the look on my grandmother's face that she and I knew the same thing, the thing we could never tell the world, the entire landscape of my mother's discomfiture. We have to keep her safe. I shut my eyes and nodded, willing my body to free itself of its own memory. I tried to stay away from her, my mother, her constant sleep, her rage-filled days, her sobs in the middle of the afternoon. Stay away, because even as I know it is too late, I'd like to separate her feelings from my own. This morning, I walked into her bedroom to ask her a question about something. About anything, really. My sisters and I come in from time to time, especially when my mother is moving through her days like a ghost. Like she's sleepwalking from her past to her future and back. Never in the present with us. We come in to see how close she is to waking, and if there's a possibility of her entering into the day with us. As soon as I said ma'am, she pulled the covers over her head and turned her back to the door. To me, my father walked into the room and rubbed my back for a moment. I'll take you to school today, he said, and he shut the door between her and us. I feel the tug of the cord between us tonight, as I am standing in the middle of my father's study. Parents argue in the garden, just outside the open window. I am in here because this is what I do. Sometimes, I walk into my father's study and stand, paralyzed, staring at the top left drawer of the large mahogany desk. He keeps the photograph in there, along with some other papers. There's a key, and I know he carries it with other keys on a chain that is always on his person. I don't want that key, because I don't want to open that drawer and go back until we inherit the fire audio, Rodley Enduhyu, that summer blanket, and feel the heat of the fearful body. So in that way, my father keeps me safe. But even he can only do so much of that. My parents don't shout, but they do argue constantly. Even when they're not speaking and only looking at each other, they are arguing. I have to stay by her side, says my mother. What if? With the tightest hold on patience, my father says, I'll go to her every day. Your mother and your aunts will go. But the hold escapes him and, Jesus, people can manage life. I know the rhythm of my parents' conversations. She is firm and stands her ground at first, and he can stay patient. But when she starts to plead and looks at him a certain way, his switch from patient to a sharp tone is often instant. I need you to listen to me, he says. From the street, a car's screeching wheels drown their talk. When the noise is gone, my father clears his throat, and a chair is scraping against the stone ground. Though I am separated from my mother by a wall, I know she unclenches her jaw and pushes back a lump in her throat. Knowing the helplessness that comes next, I move to sit both the weight of my mother's sadness. She needs me, she pleads. So do the girls. So do our girls. The smoke from his cigarette wafts in through the study's open window. I am holding on to the arms of the chair, eyes wide, I am facing a teacher's hot stare. Our mama, my great-grandmother, has been in the hospital 2 weeks and 2 days. Our house reeks of sudden grief. Yesterday morning, my father came into the kitchen, looking for his keys. He marched into the sitting room, up to his study, and then back into the kitchen, patting and shoving his hands into his pockets. I had my bowl tilted, scooping the last of the cereal milk, as he did the march again. When my eyes met the set of keys at the edge of the kitchen table, he was back upstairs in his study. I knew not to call to him, that he would come downstairs when he was finished searching, that he would find the keys. We inherit the fire audio, Rodley and Hugh, when he was ready. My father thinks as he walks. He pats his pockets like he's tapping his hands to a steady rhythm. Front pockets, back pockets, front pocket of his shirt. Again, then again. We know he's not looking for the thing he says he's looking for. So we wait for him to conclude his march up and down the stairs, or around the garden, or, on days when there is something about his businesses that he has to decide on, he leaves his car at home and walks, taking the long way to work. I stood up to take my bowl to the sink. A second loop. Then he was back in the kitchen, where I was now wiping the dish I had just washed. I looked at him, and our eyes locked. When I halved the dishcloth and put it in, he came to kiss my forehead, without saying a word. I could see his thoughts move past me and somewhere into the distance, and I knew what was happening just then. My father had looked around and caught the pungent odor of sorrow that had permeated the house the past few days, and he had come to a decision. Finally, as if seeing them for the first time, he reached for his keys on the table and jogged out of the house. This evening, he came in late, just as we were sitting down to supper. He pulled his work tie from his collar, as if fighting to free himself from the tight grip of something deadly. We know, when he does this, that two things are happening. He is desperate to peel himself away from his day, and what he says next will be followed by a conclusion he has come to after doing one of his marches. He sat down and put his serviette on his lap and cleared his throat. Take the girls away, just for a few days. Wouldn't you all like to get away? It wasn't a question. To which my mother responded, I am not leaving when my grandmother is in the hospital. I am not going that far away from her. Now, an hour after supper, I hear them in the garden, and I can tell that his decision is final. He wants us all out of the house. I press my hand to the desk and swivel on the leather chair once, twice, then 3 times. I come in here for one reason: to stare at the locked-up drawer and see how strong my will has grown. How badly do I want to take We Inherit the Fire audio, Rodley and Hugh an axe, and smash the desk open, and torch the photograph? It depends on the day, or the circumstances of the days we've been moving through. Today the temptation is strong. I don't want to smash my father's beautiful desk, rid of the newspaper clipping. If I had magic powers, the photo would disappear from the memories of everyone around us. No one would ever remember my mother as anything other than a mother. An ordinary neighbor with 4 children and a large, lush garden. This is something I dream of. It is something I let myself fantasize about secretly. An alternate reality where my mother is only our mother, not the mother of the nation. When I hear the kitchen door shut after a while, I know the discussion is over. We are setting off to the ocean, whether my mother likes it or not. The next day, as we load our bags in the car, I am weary of the trip before it starts. I see how very angry she is about being made to leave her grandmother, our mama, the person whom she speaks of as her first mother. Yesterday she came home from visiting hours at the hospital and didn't say a word to us. It occurs to me that when my father sat down and announced we were going on holiday, my mother's response was the first thing she had said all day. After a long bath earlier this morning, she sat in a towel at the edge of her bed, looking down at her bare feet. I should remember to pack my new sandals, she said, but didn't move at all. The line between her eyebrows deepened with each passing minute. I hoped she would do what she sometimes does, which is to start stripping herself of her clothes and crawling back under the sheets. She didn't. She pulled herself off the bed instead and went to fix her makeup, combed out her hair in a full afro, and slipped on her watch and rings. Then she stepped into her best heels and walked out to the car. Dress every day the way you'd like to be found, if the world comes crashing, is my grandmother's constant advice about clothes. Her packed bag she left in the middle of her bedroom, and I didn't pick it up, not trusting her to keep to the plan, still willing her not to. Tumain, my younger sister, came in and carried it as we followed our mother to the car. We inherit the fire audio Rodley Enduhue. Now she stands at the wide-open driver's door, and I can see her deciding if she will or will not step in. She fidgets with her keys. She keeps looking at her watch. Beside our mother now stands my little sister Lona, holding her hand. Mama, let's go, she says as she pulls. My mother turns her head and looks at her, her bright-eyed and excited youngest child, and I know what's happening. I know it just by looking in her eyes. Blank and disoriented, not adjusting to reality. She is looking at Lona as if she's meeting her for the first time. I already feel the tightness in my shoulders, the one that comes with feeling my mother's panic, which is to say, my own. So I offer something she needs. Should we stop by the hospital first to see how our mama is, and let her know we'll be away only for a little while? She looks up at me, and there is the gratitude I know so well. Her eyes suddenly back with us. When we've all piled in, she reverses the car with the speed of